This is the Uncommon Success Podcast, where we explore topics about success and dive into the stories of leaders who found success along the way.
And success isn't easy. It takes some grit, a little bit of luck, and a whole lot of patience.
We know that success comes in many shapes and sizes, and we're exploring them all.
So get ready for a journey through the remarkable stories of individuals who have faced challenges head on and learned many lessons along the way.
From business moguls to artists, educators to industry leaders, entrepreneurs to athletes. If it's an uncommon success story, we'll cover it.
The Uncommon Success Podcast. Real stories, real people, real success.
This episode is brought to you by Desoto and Benton Physical Therapy. Experience the difference at Desoto Physical Therapy and Benton Physical Therapy, serving the Shreveport-Bossier area. Whether you're in the north or the south, they've got you covered. Their mission is simple but powerful: to provide exceptional physical therapy care. They empower their patients to achieve their goals, enhance physical function, and live pain-free in a compassionate environment. With nearly a decade of effectively serving the region, their evidence-based functional approach sets them apart. For Desoto Physical Therapy, call 318-775-9870, and for Benton Physical Therapy, dial 318-935-9075. Or check them out online at desotopt.com or benton-pt.com. Take the first step towards a healthier, more active life with Desoto and Benton Physical Therapy, where your well-being is their number one priority.
Welcome to episode number 4 of the Uncommon Success Podcast. Thank you for watching or listening.
Yes, welcome. We love our developing community that we have going here. We're glad that you're tuning in today. I'm your host, Andy Coates, and I'm joined by my co-host, the hostess with the mostest, Miss Brinly Foxall.
We made it to episode 4. We did it.
We did. We're here.
Yes. Did you know that 44% of all podcasts have less than 3 episodes?
Well, look at us. That's pretty
We're
awesome.
killing it.
We've made it past 44% of the people out there who try doing a podcast. So I feel like we've kind of arrived. But
We've arrived.
Before we jump in, I do have a question I want to ask here in just a second. But before we do that, I want to introduce our special guest who's joining us today, the owner of both Desoto Physical Therapy and Benton Physical Therapy. Dr. Doug James is in the house with us today.
Hey, thanks for having me.
Yeah, man. Glad that you are here.
Yes, we are so glad you're on the show. Okay, Andy, give us that question.
So I was thinking about this, and really what I'd like to do is just kind of share. You know, my wife, she worked for several years in the nursing home, assisted living realm. And I discovered, did y'all know that like every day of the entire year has some kind of special assigned theme to it? Did you know that?
It's like every day's a gift.
Yeah, exactly. And every day they have some crazy thing that they'll assign. Sometimes they're funny, silly things, sometimes just unique to the day. But I thought, man, today's February 1st. Mm-hmm. We're launching into this new month. We've made it past our first month. So heading into the new month, just some things that are happening in February that people may not have known. Now, tomorrow is Groundhog Day, February 2nd,
it's Groundhog
Day. We're waiting to see, I guess. Is it good if the groundhog sees its shadow?
It's like a shadow thing.
It's something about a shadow, but I don't know if it's good or bad if it sees its shadow.
You're the doctor.
I just don't want the day to repeat over and over and over again. So
just hope that
I don't care. Otherwise, I don't care.
Yeah, whether he sees it or not, you just don't want to repeat it.
Yeah, just don't repeat the whole thing over and over.
So whether that groundhog sees its shadow, good or bad, that's the second. Well, then on the 4th of February, here's something you may not know. That's Thank Your Mail Carrier Day.
And don't forget, because they're the ones that could, I don't know, break your package because you didn't give them a thank you card.
That's right. So be sure to thank your mail carrier on that day because they know it's that day. They're ready for it, so you better be ready for it too. This year, the 11th of February is Super Bowl, which is, expected in early February. But that day is also World Marriage Day.
All right.
So we'll see how that goes. The fact that
a lot of competition happening on that day.
Super Bowl attention, your spouse's attention.
Who's in the Super Bowl?
We don't know yet.
Oh, okay.
Yeah,
I don't keep up.
We will by the time this episode airs.
By the time this episode airs, that's true. It will be known who's going to the Super Bowl. Right now, we don't know as we're filming this.
That's a good day.
If you could make some predictions, that would be something interesting.
The Cowboys are coming back.
You are. I can guarantee you missed it on that one. There's not a whole other thing I can guarantee. So that's the 11th. Then the 13th, here in Louisiana, not everyone's listening from Louisiana, found out this week we have people listening from all over the world. As we were looking at the statistics, we're worldwide recognition right here. So
we should start talking in accents.
we're filming. That'd be terrible.
I think you already do.
Yeah. To most of the world, they're like, what accent is this that you're
What
already
are we
talking
listening
to?
to here?
So that's, for here in Louisiana where we're filming this, we have Mardi Gras. That's a big deal here in the state. And then the next day is Valentine's Day. Again, back-to-back conflicting days that seem like it's not going to go so well. You know, if people don't act right on Mardi Gras and then the next day they're supposed to take their significant other out for a date, that could be a problem. The 19th, President's Day. But then on the 27th, it really gets serious. On the 27th of February, it's National Polar Bear Day.
Well, I wish we could have a polar bear here so we could celebrate.
You know, that's at the end of the month, so we'll check with our producer and see what we can do. So
let's make it happen.
Yeah, Jess Camp, we'll send him on a mission to try to make a polar bear show up for a guest for us, for polar, at least an icy, you know, the little drink.
Yeah, at least
That's
an
a good
icy.
idea.
Ices,
We can
polar
have
bears.
ices.
I like it.
And then at this month, for February the 29th, we get this every 4 years, I guess. There's a leap day this year.
I'm so
in
excited
February.
about
Me
it.
too. I love Leap Day.
Yeah, it's like a bonus day of the year. Like you don't want to mess that up.
It should be one big party.
Just on the 29th,
Yeah.
it should be no work.
No,
National holiday.
you get like an
National
extra
holiday.
day of life.
Yes.
That's how that works.
So, exciting, fun things happening in the month of February, and we have a great lineup scheduled. I got Dr. Doug James with us today, but also some great guests that we have lined out for our Patreon members. If you go on Patreon and join us on Patreon, you'll be able to see who that list is. So, yeah, exciting things happening. in the
So
month.
exciting. But we're not only just growing in our views and listens, but we're also growing on our TikTok audience and in our community.
That's fun.
So I have an idea. Since we're talking about leveraging opportunities, let's give our audience an opportunity.
Okay. Sounds good. I like it. What are you thinking?
Okay, so on Friday, we'll post a question to Facebook, Instagram, and TikTok, and then every comment on Friday and Saturday till 11:59 p.m. Now, if you comment at 12:01 and it rolls into Sunday, it doesn't count.
Now, 11:59 Central Time.
Central time.
Central time.
Central. So
you're
if
listening
you're
on the East
in
Coast.
Australia, you gotta calculate that.
We're not doing the math for them.
We're not. Okay, so Central Time in America, you'll go into a drawing for a signed copy of these. One of these. You get to pick.
All right.
Ditch the Career or Unlocking Money Secrets. Let me let you. Okay, so if you're watching online, you get to see this, but not
Yeah.
if you're listening.
The two of my latest books that have come out, and you'll get a signed copy of that. We'll send it to you, so we'll be in touch. If you win that competition, we'll send those books to you. If you don't want either one of those books, I also have some children's books that I could send out. If someone's like, hey, I'd rather have a children's book than I would something about money or
They
ditching
want
my
all
career.
the books. They're all gold. Maybe
I'm not sending all of
give
them
them
to somebody.
all. The Andy Coates special gold package. We're gonna
whole
have.
collection.
The whole
The whole
collection.
How many are there?
8 or 9, I think.
All right.
definitely.
It's not a
So,
trilogy. What would be a?
It's a trilogy
Ocho?
of a trilogy, but they don't all go together. So
All right. Well.
we'll start with 2 books.
Oh,
on-
you get
on this
2. Look, I just
competition.
got y'all
double.
double. That's negotiation right there. We're learning things all day.
I'll give both of those books away. So I'll sign both of them, and whoever wins that, I'll tell you, let's put some parameters on it. If we have more than 15, I'll give away both. If it's less than 15, it's only getting 1. So
Somebody's gonna comment 1, 2.
they'll have to sign up.
3,
It's got to be independent.
4, 5.
Independent. It can't be like Doug can't get on and just make a bunch of comments. 15 by himself.
I may do it just to be sassy.
Improve my odds a little bit if I did that.
That's true. That's true. So I'll give away, if we have more than 15 comments, then between all of them, I'm not asking for much here. I'll give away both the books.
All right. Okay. All right.
All right. You go with that?
I'm good with that. And speaking of comments, we have some comments to share.
All right.
Okay, so on YouTube, this one is deep. Facing adversity, facing pain is necessary to grow. Wait, I should preface what I'm doing. I'm reading our comments off of YouTube.
There we go.
I'm not just coming up with this. Yeah. Expectations may fail, but you do the best you can in your current circumstances. And the key to grit and resiliency is consistency. That's a great word, Coach. Thanks for your insight and inspiration.
Yeah.
That's a great comment.
Yeah, following up from our visit with Coach Reagan Smith last week. Yeah, that's good.
Great comment. We also got some comments for Coach Reagan. We got some comments for Chad McDowell that they were amazing. They were awesome. So if you didn't listen, you need to go back. But on our Facebook page, we did ask this question: have you ever wanted to quit, and what made you keep going? Let that sink in for a minute. As you think of your answer, we had someone say that countless times I've wanted to quit. The two biggest things that have kept me going is my personal relationship I have with Christ and my son that God has given me to mother.
There you
Beautiful
go.
words.
Yeah, that's good.
Beautiful words, yeah.
Getting a little momentum happening. So this week, if you leave that comment, it's Friday and Saturday until 11:59 Central Time. Leave a comment. It may make it on the podcast, and you may win the drawing. Should we do that on Friday or Saturday, the drawing as separate, or should we do it on the podcast when we film for next week?
Podcast.
Let's do it.
Absolutely. And then on TikTok, if you want to, if you're a TikTok, you know what I'm saying. If you want to stitch this instead, you can.
So if you know what that means, then you'll know how to she'll know how to get your response from that, right? All right, so we'll do it on the podcast for next week. We'll announce who the winner is next week on the podcast. So yeah, that's exciting stuff. Well, before we jump too much into our topic today, Brinly, why don't you tell us a little more about Dr. Doug James, who's with us today?
Well, there's a lot about Dr. Doug James, so this is going to be a bit, but this is very interesting, so on the edge of your seat. Dr. Doug James is a seasoned physical therapist. We'll have a lot of questions about like my shoulder and stuff after this, but we'll keep going. And successful entrepreneur based in Stonewall, Louisiana, graduating from LSUS with a bachelor's in kinesiology and earning his doctorate of physical therapy from LSU Health. He boasts 12 years of experience in the field. For the past 8 years, Dr. James has not only been practicing, but also flourishing as the owner of Desoto Physical Therapy and Benton Physical Therapy. Dedicated to growth, he has actively contributed to the establishment of 2 additional clinics, showcasing his commitment to the well-being of the community. Beyond his professional pursuits, Dr. James is a loving husband to Sabrina and a proud father of 2 daughters. He and his wife are devoted volunteers at their church, where they both serve in the worship and media ministry. Dr. James loves his family and his business. He has a passion for taking care of his employees and providing outstanding service to his community.
That's you, right? Sounds like you got a lot going on there.
That's me in a nutshell.
Yeah.
That about wraps it up.
Yeah, that's awesome, man. We're done, right?
That's
that wraps
it.
up the
That's
show.
it. Nice being with y'all.
Yeah.
Thanks for having me.
Well, man, we're excited to have you on today.
Yeah, good to be here. I appreciate it.
Doug, I know I just read your bio, but give us a little bit more about your history, your foundation, where you're from, family, all the good stuff.
Well, grew up here in this area, the Shreveport area. Went to high school at Byrd, went to college at LSUS, and doctorate school at LSU Health. And so all within about 5 minutes of each other. So not the most exciting college career.
But great on the gas bill.
But good on the gas and the lodging bill.
Yeah.
Started working in Shreveport right out of school, and we moved to Stonewall. My wife was a teacher there, and that's what led us to that area. And one thing, led to another, and opened a business there, and that's that. I mean, we're just trying to build a good business and provide a good service for the people where we live now, and
Awesome.
it's been great.
That's awesome. I graduated from Byrd too.
Okay,
So exciting.
Yeah.
it's a good place.
Man,
Great
it's-
place. Look at what Byrd has produced.
I mean, just
Man,
Champions.
I had to bring on a coach from my school last week just so because I knew this week it'd be all about Byrd High School, so I had to bring someone from mine last week. But man, that's awesome. Today we're going to be talking about. I've known you for a long time, and today we're going to be talking about leveraging opportunities today. So we want to dive into what that looks like and what that means a little bit. I put it as a little tagline, some luck and a bunch of action. So we just kind of want to frame that up a little bit for us today before we dive into your story and asking you a bunch of questions. Just set a little bit of some parameters on what we're saying there, what that means by some luck and a bunch of action. We're all people of faith, and so for us, when we're talking about luck, we don't think that things just happen by, randomness. We believe there is significance to that from the Lord. But when we're talking about luck, we're kind of looking at what are those things that happen that we don't expect, that we didn't plan for, we didn't set it up, it wasn't in our strategic plan. But had we not been taking action, we would have never stumbled upon. I read a quote this week that I thought was pretty remarkable, talking about courage and stupidity. All right, you ready for this?
Ready.
So courage being that you take a step of action knowing that it's going to hurt, right? That's the definition of courage. We know
Right.
that. Stupidity is the same definition. You take the step of action knowing that it's going to hurt. So we're looking at opportunities and leveraging those, which, that's what makes life so hard, right? That's the definition for both courage and stupidity. We're talking about leveraging opportunities. How do we know when to take those opportunities and what's the right decision? So we'd love just your insight today as we're going to dive into these questions. And I thought just to kick us off a little bit, reflecting on your journey, what principles for you would you say have been instrumental in your entrepreneurial success?
I think just being persistent is one thing. Being in business or starting a business is not always a straight line process. It's not a step-by-step thing that you do. There are challenges and bumps and hills along the way that you have to learn how to navigate. And there's been multiple times in my business career where I catch myself thinking, what have I done to myself? What am I in over my head feeling? And it's being persistent and pushing through that really helps you continue to move forward. I think of it kind of like climbing a mountain. I know you're a avid climber.
Yeah, love to climb.
And so when I think about it, that analogy kind of comes to mind. If once you start the journey, you've got to keep going. You either have a choice of turning around and going back and quitting, or you keep pushing forward. You can't just stop.
Right.
And so
that's how you die.
yeah,
Mountain climbing.
well, and same in business.
So
You will
good.
die if you
Right.
don't keep pushing forward. And
That's
so whenever those times do come up, I just have to remind myself why I'm doing it. And I think that maybe answers the first quote that you said is, what's the purpose of doing this? If
Yeah.
you're going to do something, even though it hurts, are you doing it for no reason? Do you know what purpose you're doing it for? And if you do, you can consider it courageous. If you don't, then pretty stupid.
Right. Right.
And so another thing I would say is just being resilient, which you talked about last week, and the ability to push through challenges that you face. Year before last, our office in Benton flooded. So I got a call on Christmas Day, Christmas evening. We were having
Merry Christmas.
We were sitting around having family Christmas, and I got a call that somebody thought there was some water coming out of one of the doors in our office. So, we stopped what we were doing and went up to the office, and there was a couple of inches of water on the floor throughout the whole building. Come to find out, long story, but a piece of equipment up in the attic, it had gotten down about 12 degrees that weekend. Piece of equipment busted. And so for 3 days, there had been water spraying in several directions.
Oh, because you're
throughout.
closed for the holidays.
Yeah, so there had been water spraying in multiple directions in the attic over the whole top of the building. And so we got there. There's holes in the ceiling. There's stuff falling off the
sad.
water's going down the walls. I mean, it is a total disaster.
Yeah.
And so I remember getting there, and just me and my partner Dale at the time, I remember looking at him thinking, what are we going to do? Because, we have a whole schedule of patients that are coming in 2 days.
Right.
We've got a dozen staff members or so that are dependent on this job for their livelihood.
Right.
And like, what do we do? I'm thinking he was going to look at me thinking, you got me into this mess. But I think we had that moment of kind of for about a minute, and then we started planning. All right, well, what do we have to do, to move forward? And that was that. We ended up opening for business on time. We didn't have to cancel a single visit. Nobody missed an hour of time at work, and thankfully we had a resilient staff, and we're able to push through that challenge. But there are challenges that you're going to face in business. Some of you create yourself by not knowing, and some you have no control over.
Right.
So you have to have that ability to push through when it's hard and bounce back from those times.
Okay, so there's obviously a lot of opportunities coming your way with what you do. So what matters to you when you're weighing out the opportunities to take and the opportunities not to take?
I think as the physical therapist in me, I think as a PT and most PTs in general, or really anybody in the healthcare business, we go into that field because we like to help people. And so when I think about a business opportunity for myself, that's really what interests me. Is I want to be involved in opportunities that help people, that make their lives better, and really as a business, one of my goals is that our business helps to improve the lives of the people in the community. Everything from the service that we provide to the look of our facility, that it upgrades the town that we're in, it upgrades the lives of the people that are there. That really is kind of where my thinking goes when I look into opportunities. Is there some way to make this area or build this area up and improve the lives of the people that live here?
That's
so
awesome.
good.
Yeah. Helping people on one hand, but then like building up the community around you. So like for you, when making the decision, you worked as a physical therapist in that world for a little while, just doing physical therapy, and then made a decision at some point to transition to open your own clinic. Let's walk through that a little bit. Like what spurred you into that decision in your journey?
Well, I like to help people. And so as I was, we moved to Stonewall, lived there a few years, and I realized that, this is a growing area. It's got a K through 12 school system. It's got a growing older population, and they have no options for physical therapy right now without having to drive, a good ways. And so realizing that there was a need, where there's a need, there's an opportunity. And so
that's good. So like you see a need that's happening in your area, want to fill that need. Now, of course, that idea, that principle works in all areas. That's not just
that's right.
Starting your own clinic, but
if you're looking to volunteer somewhere, if you're looking, to in ministry, even within your family, where there's a need, there's an opportunity to step in and to meet that need. And so, listening to the podcast over the last few weeks, it was interesting to me to hear the guests talk about how their journey worked with their career and to reach where they are now. That they got a position that they weren't necessarily ready for, but they grew into that, and then they learned things there that prepared them for the next opportunity. And that was very similar to how I feel like my career has gone. My first job, I worked at a larger hospital system with probably close to a dozen excellent therapists, where I really learned how to be a physical therapist. And what I learned there helped me prepare for the next job, which I took a couple years later as a rehab director at a small hospital. And at that time, I still had no desire whatsoever to go into business. But so I go to this small hospital. The company I worked for had just taken over the contract at that hospital. And my first day on the job, my boss gives me a tour of the facility. And about an hour in, he's out. He says, he's on a plane headed for Vegas for a week.
Wow.
So here I am in this new job. I have a new PT assistant who just graduated school. So it's her first day on the job. And here we are in this hospital that neither one of us were really familiar with. We're running the inpatient and the outpatient side with not a lot of structure in place. And we basically had to create a therapy program from scratch. And she ended up being awesome. And we were able to work our way through that. And that experience is really what taught me and grew me in how to operate a therapy practice. And I didn't really know it or think I was doing it at the time, but looking back on it, that's how I learned the basics of what I needed to do to go into business. And after I'd had that experience, the thought of having a business wasn't as intimidating
Yeah.
as it had been before that. And so without my first job, I'd have never been prepared and able to do my next one. Without that one, I never would have considered going into business. And so it's interesting looking back how some of the jobs, maybe even ones that you don't like doing, or not that I didn't, but all of those things prepare you for what's coming ahead. Even at the smallest menial jobs can really play some of the biggest parts of your success and later,
Yeah, it's not just leveraging. Seems like in your story, not just leveraging opportunity, but leveraging your experience. What you learned in this job, I'm now going to leverage what I learned, take that into my next scenario, and you're building that personal portfolio of experience that's building confidence along the way. So for you, it sounds like even I took that step because, man, I already walked down that road.
That's it. It didn't feel foreign
Yeah.
to me because I experienced it, even if I didn't have it as part of my formal training.
Yeah. You weren't trained how to run your own clinic, but because your boss rolls out to Vegas, you're like, I can do this because I did it for him.
Right.
Yeah.
Right. And while at the time that was like, man, I just got thrown to the wolves.
Yeah.
If I wouldn't have had that experience, I don't think I would have ever even considered opening up a business.
You had all this preparation, but did you struggle with those transitions? And if so, like, tell us about that.
It's probably easier for me than some people. I feel like a lot of therapists that go into business do so because they feel like they're the best at what they do. I always said I was blessed with mediocrity, meaning that even ever since I've opened my business, I never thought that I was the best one in the room. And so it wasn't as hard for me to transition from being a physical therapist on a daily basis to taking over more of the business growth and that part of it, because thankfully I've been blessed to work with some really talented physical therapists that we've had come along the way. And so fortunately for me, it wasn't as hard as I think it typically is for a lot of business owners, where you can't step out of producing because quality will suffer.
Yeah.
I'm fortunate. I don't feel like I found myself in that situation because of the good people that I've been fortunate to work with.
I'm curious, what was kind of the as you stepped into that transition, what was the first big lesson that you learned?
So the first day that I opened in January of 16, outfitted this clinic area that we had. It looked really nice. Had big pretty sign up, and I'm thinking, that the old quote, "If you build it, they will come." And
Yeah.
I just expected when we opened that
Flood of people.
it was just going to be packed.
Yeah.
And so we opened that first day, and I had one person come in that day, the whole day. And I remember sitting there at the end of the day thinking, what have I done?
Yeah.
Because I'm going to fail. Like there's, what do I do? And so I would say the first big lesson that I learned is that you can have the best of everything, the best service, the best location, all that. It doesn't matter. You have to promote your business. You got to get the word out.
Now here you are in this moment of like, what do I do now? Like I built all this time and preparation for it, and just the realness of there's still more. And you can either freeze in that moment, or you can say, what now? What do we need to do?
I think it's best said, you don't know what you don't know. Like I didn't know that I didn't know how to market.
Yeah.
And it wasn't even on my radar because I never experienced it. And so there's a lot of lessons that you learn that way. Don't know that I got to account for everything that comes in and goes out. You don't think about those things. And so I'm not ashamed to say I have a few YouTube degrees in
Yeah.
some of those skills that you just kind of have to learn along the way.
Yeah.
And so,
Kind of thinking of that along the way type thing. There's that balance of what we called luck, or just the unforeseen or the unexpected things versus being strategic about it. Can you share like some specific instances where both of those things have played a significant role in your journey? I didn't see this coming. We just were very fortunate here versus we planned for it.
the first thing I think about is the location of our first office was in Stonewall, area that we moved to because my wife got a job teaching there. It wasn't somewhere that we scouted out or did a lot of research on to find out, is this the best place? We opened it because it was close to home and convenient for us.
In your community.
Yeah. And so what I didn't realize at the time was that the area was growing like crazy, and that today it would be obvious that there needs to be a therapy place here, but 8 years ago it wasn't quite so much. And so very fortunate that kind of by chance we chose to open up in an area that was going upwards instead of backwards. Another thing that I've been really fortunate on is, when you start a business and you're growing, you have to hire people, you have to bring in a team, but the quality of the people that of the team that we have is more than I would have dreamed of. Just such a talented and devoted and passionate group of people that really love what they do. They love the people that we serve, and the fact that I have such an amazing team of therapists and administrators, and very fortunate and blessed to have the group of people that have chosen to come work at our company.
So for our listeners out there, how would you recommend them navigating, balancing between seizing these incredible opportunities, but also calculating risk?
Well, risk is very real. Anytime you step out into something, you're taking a risk. And so one of the ways that I would say to mitigate that is that there's a good book that talks about not despising small beginnings.
Yeah.
The good book, if I'm not mistaken.
Yeah.
And so if I thought I had to have everything to start, I would have never started a business, because at the clinic I worked in at the time, you walk in, it's this huge room full of all this equipment. It was, it used to be a gym. So, it had everything you could think of. And I remember being kind of paralyzed by that, thinking, I'd never open a business. I can't afford all this stuff. And I just walked in one day and realized that for 90+% of what I do every day, I use that piece of equipment, that one, that and that. And, 3 or 4 things, a table and some parallel bars, and not crazy expensive, big, huge gym equipment. And when I realized that, I'm thinking, well, I could get that.
Yeah.
And once I realized that and could move forward without having to have all of this stuff, it made that decision a lot easier. We opened in a 1,000 square foot facility. 1,000 square feet is bigger, small as some people's living room sometimes nowadays. And so we, about a year and a half after that, we moved to a 2,000 square foot space. And a couple of years ago, we built a 5,000 square foot office that we moved into. And so if I would have tried to open a business in a 5,000 square foot building to begin with, we would have failed.
Right.
And so
you weren't ready for that.
Starting small and growing as your business grows is an important way to mitigate your risk. Another thing I would say is that every opportunity that comes along is not a great opportunity. As a optimist and an entrepreneur to the core, I don't think I've come across what felt like a bad opportunity.
Right.
You know, I mean, you just want to jump at everything. But I think that's where, if you know that about yourself, then you have someone in your life that is a pessimist, or, you know, maybe a better term would be a realist, to give you some input on that, and to give you some pitfalls that maybe you don't see right away. And if they can poke holes in it, then give you something to think about. And sometimes it is a good opportunity. Be kind of like showing up at American Idol, and you think you're the best singer in the room, and you haven't been fortunate enough to have someone in your life to tell you, this might not be your thing.
Right.
And you go out there and you make a fool of yourself. Having that input and that wisdom, when you know it's not your strong point, is something I would tell you is important to have. I think everybody should have a good pessimist in their life.
Yeah.
Especially when all they see is the
blue sky.
the blue skies ahead of them.
Yeah.
Because not every opportunity is blue skies, even though it may feel that way.
For someone that's listening right now and they're assessing the risk, what would you tell them to do, or how would you tell them to assess?
Well, the way I did it was trying to figure out what is the worst case scenario. So before we moved forward with opening a clinic, me and my wife sat down and said, okay, worst case, if we do this, what could happen? And obviously worst case is you spend some money, you open, and it just goes belly up, it fails, you have to close. What does that look like? And for us, it was about a car note. And with the training and the degree that I have, I knew that even if if it failed and I lost, it wouldn't ruin us financially. I could dig myself out of a hole in a few years of an extra car note. So that was kind of worst case scenario if we did it. What is worst case scenario if we don't do it and someone else comes along and plants a business right here that I should have done? I just felt like I couldn't live with that. I'd have had to move, because I couldn't drive by that all day knowing what I could have and should have done. And so, on one hand, worst case, we do it, we can dig ourselves out of that. On the other hand, we got to leave.
Yeah.
It made that decision easier for us. Pretty obvious.
Looking at that and saying, like, worst case scenario, how am I calculating that? And then not living with regret.
Yeah, well, I mean,
that as well.
You have to be able to live with your decisions, and I've got to not just take, my personal desires into it, but I've got, a wife and 2 girls that they're going to be affected by this decision too. And so if I can live with the decision, then we can move forward.
Yeah.
And that's really what made that decision easier for us.
That's so good.
So in your journey of becoming an entrepreneur, I mean, obviously you've been growing and scaling your business now. How has your personal relationships and your networking played a role in your journey?
There's no possible way that I would be where I am or have accomplished what we've accomplished without the people who have helped me along the way. It's not lost on me that when someone decides to come join our company, or those that have decided to partner with me over the years, that they're putting a lot of trust and faith in me. They're trusting that we're running a strong and resilient business. They're also committing this part of their career, however long it may be, to helping advance the vision and the mission of our company. Still find it hard to believe that sometimes that these people would trust in me that much. One of my biggest drivers every day is, and what really gets me excited of growing and pushing forward, is being able to grow our business so that it can provide even more resources and better opportunities for the people that trusted in me. It's almost a challenge to me to be like, thanks for taking a chance on me. Now I'm going to prove you that you were right.
So what advice would you have for someone considering taking their small business and creating it, but they're hesitant?
I would tell you, before you decide to start a business, you better be sure that you're passionate about what you're doing. Then, and you're persistent and you're resilient, then you can push through and really create something that's everything that you dreamed it would be, and more.
Well, Doug, what we like to do in this section now is we go to what we call our rapid fire questions. So we're going to throw some questions at you pretty quickly. So just a quick response to what you have, 30, 40 seconds or something of a response to what we throw at you. So Brinley's going to kick us off with our first rapid fire questions.
All right, here we go. What do you love about this current season of business?
I feel like I'm finally past that infancy stage of business where not only are you trying to start and build a business, but you're also just knee deep in the day-to-day running. Now that we've got some established, we're more established. I've been able to take a few deep breaths. I'm personally almost out of patient care, and that has given me the ability to see things from a bigger perspective instead of just getting through the day-to-day.
Yeah.
Start to plan for the future and for what is this thing going to look like down the line. And it's a refreshing new period of business to be in.
Yeah, getting to see the big picture, the bird's eye view.
Mm-hmm.
Right.
And, like as being a parent, you're out of the waking up in the middle of the night moments with your kid.
Right.
Like you're able to say, okay, we're growing now. And it's a little more, it's probably more fun for you.
It is.
It's enjoyable.
This is the fine-tuned stage, so we can look and see what are some things that we're doing that could be better.
Yeah.
And now actually have the time and the ability to go in and make some of those changes to improve our product and improve our operations. And I think that's going to be a better solution for our clients, our patients, and also our staff.
Love it. So speaking of kind of recent, this transition, what's been the biggest lesson that you've learned recently?
Well, like I said, I've transitioning out of patient care, and so more of my responsibilities fall on growing the clinic and growing our staff. And so one of the realizations that I came to is that I no longer have the responsibility of becoming the best physical therapist I can be. Now I have to learn how to be the best leader I can be, the best business person. I've started trying to invest in learning how to run a business more, and instead of just going off what feels right or what I think is best for that day, how to put structure in place to build a better foundation and with myself and then obviously for our company.
What is your biggest piece of medical advice? Like, for instance, my shoulder's been bothering me. What would you tell just generically to people?
Like off the street?
Yeah, there's anybody.
Off the streets?
You're a physical therapist? What?
Just put some ice on it.
Put some ice.
Just put some ice on it. If it's still hurting you in a few days, come see us.
There you go. And if it looks like they're in a lot of pain, you're like, yeah, just go to the doctor.
Yeah.
Maybe a large bag of ice if they're in a lot of pain.
As big as you want.
Yeah.
The bigger the better.
Speaking of advice, what piece of advice did someone give to you that was most helpful for you in your journey?
So I had a friend of mine tell me this guy was a little older, probably towards the end of his business career, had been successful, but he was also probably one of those pessimists that I was telling you about earlier. And I remember him telling me that he always laughs when he hears people say failure is not an option. He said, because I can guarantee you failure is an option. And when you take a risk and you step out, failure is always one of the possible outcomes. And you better be sure that if you take a risk, that you account for that fact, that sometimes you will fail.
Yeah.
But he said, here's the thing, failure isn't the end of that story. Every failure that he faced, he said, had become a source of wisdom. It taught him resilience. It taught him the importance of being adaptable to the changes of the environment, the business environment that he was in, and said, instead of fearing failure, use those lessons that you learn from that to refine your strategy, to learn from your mistakes and to come out stronger. And that really stuck with me because sure enough, there have been times where something that didn't turn out the way that I expected it to, and that's tough.
Yeah.
When you let people down, it's embarrassing. Your sense of that imposter syndrome kind of creeps up on you, and I can tell you that there are lessons to be learned in every success and every failure.
Yeah.
And if you approach business with that mindset, then understanding what that failure actually is, then you can begin to leverage those failures as stepping stones to your success.
Yeah, failure's not final.
No.
It doesn't. You're not done at the end of it. In fact, I've learned more from
Yeah.
failing. Like that's been probably the best lessons I have.
Well, and I'll tell you another thing that I feel is true in that same vein. Success isn't a destination that you get to either.
Right.
I was thinking about this and thinking, all right, what are some of the biggest goals that I've set? We hit a pretty milestone goal that we had set in our office towards the end of last year. But also think about just training for a marathon or, some big things that you set goals for. When you accomplish those things, how long do you actually get that deep satisfaction for? You would think it'd be forever, but in all honesty, you're at the top of that summit. You enjoy it while you're there.
Right.
You talk about it when you get home. But a week later, a few days later, you're moving to the next thing, and that's kind of you were as successful as you could be, but
Yeah.
it's just a step along the journey, and it's to the next thing. And so,
Yeah, both success and failure have that same kind of moment. Like it doesn't define you.
Right.
If you hope that the success is going to define you, that emotional feeling won't last. But the failure, like if you're thinking that's permanent, well, that also doesn't define you. It's what you do with both of those things that matters. In this podcast of the Uncommon Success podcast, that's kind of our mission is to say, okay, what does that actually look like? And your journey and your story and how helpful that is in our journey and our story of realizing, man, I'm not stuck in failure, and success isn't about reaching a final place, but it's about who I become along the way. So,
Right.
man, that's so good. So good.
It's so good. And you're talking about, you get to the summit, you're looking for the next one. So you guys hit a big milestone last year. So you're looking at all the other summits. So what's next for Doug James? What summits are you looking for right now?
well, like I said today, you keep moving forward. You keep growing. You keep working on building your business, putting things into place that will increase the resilience of your business. Our theme for the year in our offices is embrace the movement.
I like
it's kind of a double meaning to it. Physical therapists are known as the movement experts. So we want to help people move better and get feeling better and get back to living with less restriction, whatever that may be. But we also have talked about starting a movement, if you will, in the communities that we serve to encourage people to move, to exercise, to be aware and concerned about their health. And we want to be a part of their journey to better health. And have a great team of people around me, and I'm confident that we've got some really great days ahead.
I love it, man.
That's so clever. Embrace the movement. Like, I get it. I love that.
Well, man, we appreciate you sharing just a sneak peek, kind of your story along the way, and the highs, the lows, and everything in between. I know it's been inspiring for us and for our audience as well.
I appreciate you having me here today.
Well, I want to give a special thank you to our sponsor today, Desoto Physical Therapy and Benton Physical Therapy.
Yeah, great. And those are Dr. Doug James's clinics, and so we definitely want you to go and support them. They do a great job. And Dr. Doug James is going to stick around with us for a few minutes for our Patreon crew, for our little discussion with our Patreon Inner Circle. We're going to talk a little more about leveraging opportunities, so you don't want to miss that. So you can go and sign up for our Patreon. It's $7 a month for the cost of a Brinly cup of coffee to join the Cool Kids Club. You can be part of that discussion, and it's just a VIP opportunity for you to hear some behind the scenes with our guests. And so Doug will be joining us. You can go to our Patreon page. That's patreon.com/The Uncommon Success Podcast.
Yes, you want to be sure to join the Cool Kids Club on the Patreon. All right, but you can also follow us on other platforms. You can go to Apple, Spotify, and YouTube, and you can join us on Facebook, Instagram, and TikTok. It helps us out a ton if you like, share, subscribe, and review, and please leave us comments, because just like earlier, we got to read over them. We love hearing from you. It makes us so happy. So please make us happy and leave comments. And don't forget to check out our social media to be entered in that drawing by 11:59 Central Time, America.
On Saturday. So Friday and Saturday, leave your comments. And then 11:59 Saturday night,
Right.
She's shutting it off for that drawing. Well, thank you, Doug. We appreciate you joining us today. Special thanks to you for taking the time to spend with us today. And next week, we will be discussing the value of a strong network.
Well, that's a wrap. Thank you for listening. We're so glad that you joined us today.
Yeah, have a great week. See you.